Hi, Jonathan York from Bay Financial Partners, looking at the investment markets. US equity indices set fresh highs this morning, really being driven on by sort of earnings, a pretty robust US economy, but also as well obviously now renewed sort of hope and sort of outlook as well, with a potential tax policy coming through and reforms that will then push a little bit more money into the economy. As stated before, the US economy is in pretty good shape. Unemployment sort of near record lows. Still expecting an increase in the Fed funds rate in December, and then I say it's just going to be interesting to see how that sort of plays through into the first half of 2018. Still potentially looking for 3 more rate hikes in 2018. And that should then just get the US economy in terms of interest rates back to potentially a more sort of neutral stance. But say, really at present, there is a lot of good news out there in the US, and this tax reform, and if they can get it through Congress now, will just be a further little boost to the economy. But really the markets are really being driven by earnings, which are coming off a reasonably sort of low sort of PE ratios, and potentially look like they've still got plenty of room for the upside over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. Quite sort of interesting. Global growth, is say pushing on at a pretty good rate, and if anything, any surprises potentially could come to the upside as you're sort of getting a reasonable sort of momentum going forward, and potentially there's still room for improvement on the growth forecast over the next sort of 12 to 15 months. Probably more so in Europe. Europe's coming off a pretty low base, and it's really starting to gain a reasonable head of momentum now. Still very little on the Brexit, and it's starting to get sort of pretty much crunch time now. There's been very little movement on the negotiations, and there's a little bit of talk now about some of the major banking sort of players in the UK starting to move sort of staff and potentially sort of work over into Europe. That's obviously very negative for the UK, and they really need to get some plans in place. One, to say what they're going to do about Brexit, and then to try and stop the flow of people and business. Quite interesting. Oil still holding around sort of 55 on WTI. Brent's above 60. As you head into the northern hemisphere winter, it's just going to be interesting to see if that does push up a little bit higher. If it does, if WTI does get to 60, that could be pretty interesting. Potentially there's some major inflation implications on that, and it's just going to be interesting to see how the central banks sort of address that situation. As yet, we haven't really seen the supposed sort of tap being turned on in terms of the US shale. The theory was that if it got much above sort of 50, then there were plenty of wells that were just sitting there where they could just turn the tap, increase supply, and that would then dampen prices. As yet, that hasn't happened. Just on the unemployment, Australia's got the lowest rate since 2013. And again, projections are looking for that to head still lower, which again is still encouraging for the economy, and potentially sort of growth going forward in 2018, 2019. Certainly the Australian economy has done a pretty good job of sort of moving itself away from just all sort of resources, minerals, and getting back to a more sort of balanced economy. Sort of quite interesting though, is sort of global growth is sort of heading a little bit on the sort of upside, that is then obviously increased a little bit of demand for minerals and resources, mining, etc. That's giving a further boost to the Australian economy as well. Here in New Zealand, again, still sort of ticking along at a pretty good rate. The new government's sort of bedding itself down now, and we're starting to see some of the policies coming through. Looking forward for the next sort of 12 to 15 months, everything still looks pretty good shape. Economy's in pretty reasonable sort of growth mode, but it's just going to be interesting to see sort of 12 to 15 months down the road how the new sort of policies do start to impact on the economy. A bit of money coming back into the system as well with the Credit Agricole repaying in December. And if you're interested in discussing what options are available for those funds, call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we'll look forward to speaking to you soon.